So I just have a couple quick tips here to get the most out of your isometric training, particularly overcoming isometrics is what I'm talking about today. I just want to make a point here that recently I've seen a whole bunch of stuff online from established fitness trainers and all these people who are now advocating isometrics. Took them long enough, except they're still not even there because they're talking mostly about yielding isometrics, which is where you hold some sort of load, whether it's your body weight or external load. You hold it in place for as long as you can. And yielding isometrics are great for hypertrophy, and they're very safe. But the same experts keep claiming that isometrics are the best way to develop strength. They're super efficient for developing strength, and they're totally right. They're just not right about what kind of isometrics develop that strength. You don't develop the crushing strength that isometrics can give you from doing yielding isometrics. You do it from overcoming isometrics, and that is a super important distinction. And if you're not aware of the distinction, overcoming isometrics are where you push against something that's essentially immovable, against a load that you cannot overcome, whereas yielding isometrics are where you are, overcoming the load for as long as you can. You're keeping it in place or controlling it for as long as you can. So what I'm talking about here is overcoming isometrics, which are the ones that I do most of the time, and the kind that really develop your strength and are going to burn a lot more calories. And yes, they do burn a ton of calories. Another study I read recently in the Journal of Applied Training, it wasn't a recent study, it was from 2007, but in combination with a calorie deficit, doing isometrics just burns body fat like unbelievably. It just torches body fat. People lost 3 centimeters off their waistline in 2 weeks. That's nuts. They were losing 4 kilos in a month from a mild calorie deficit, which is just a lot. That's a lot. So they're great for that as well. But that's neither here nor there in relation to this video. Hopefully it's interesting to you, but here's what I actually came to tell you about overcoming isometrics. So I'm going to give you 2 tips. One is that when you're doing overcoming isometrics, there are tiers of effectiveness. The least effective overcoming isometrics are the ones where you push against your own body. Now, that doesn't mean they're not effective, right? But with the ones where you push against your own body, let's say like a chest press, okay, real easy isometric, probably a lot of people have seen it, but you just, grab your hands here or something like this, and you're pressing against your own strength, right? And because your strength is more or less balanced, it's an immovable object, essentially. These are the least effective kind of overcoming isometrics. And this is because of something that can be colloquially, man, that's a tough word to say, termed muscular inhibition. So basically, your brain and your body know when you're going to do something stupid, and they essentially put a limiter on your ability to express force with your body. Because imagine if you were pushing against your own body and there was no limit on your strength and you were pretty strong, you could easily injure yourself doing that, right? So your brain is like, wait a second, we're pushing against our own force, so we're going to really limit the amount of force that we can use here, okay? So that is the least effective tier. So if that's all you're doing right now, you're not getting everything that you could get out of doing your overcoming isometrics. Okay, the second tier, the middle tier of effectiveness, is where you're pushing against something that has no give, right? And so for that, I'm going to use my Hello Kitty, well, it's not actually mine, it's my daughter's, but a Hello Kitty water bottle. Now this thing is made out of sturdy metal, aluminum, something like that. And if I squeeze the heck out of it with my hand here, it does not give at all. At least I hope it doesn't, because I don't want to put a dent in this, because she will kill me. She is 4, but you do not mess with her Hello Kitty water bottle. So anyway, squeezing against something or pushing against something that is essentially immovable, like it has no give to it, right? This is the second tier, the middle tier of effectiveness, because once again, you have that muscular inhibition at play. Your body says, hold on a second, we are completely incapable of moving this thing. So we better not allow a full expression of our muscular strength, because we could end up hurting ourselves pushing against this thing, okay? So just like a car will have a limiter on how much speed you can put out of it, right? Your brain has these limiters built in that come into play to inhibit your muscular expression when it feels like you're in danger. So how do we get to the most effective, the third tier, the top tier of effectiveness in terms of overcoming isometrics? Well, if you've been listening, you should be able to guess that it is doing overcoming isometrics with something that does have a little bit of give, which is why for grip training, something like a water bottle is perfect, because if you squeeze it, there is just a little bit of give. And now, this is not going to spray me in the face. I've done this plenty of times. So, and no water bottles were harmed in the making of this video. This has just the right amount of give so that your body and your brain think, oh yeah, we might be able to overcome this weight. We can use all the strength we have available, okay? So something like this is perfect. Now, translate that into isometrics that you're doing for other parts of your body. If you're gonna do a chest press and all you have is your body, okay, do it with your body. If all you have is, I don't know, 45K, not 45K, that would be a huge weight, but something that's like, a sturdy metal ball, or like a sturdy metal ball. Who the hell has one of those? Like a cinder block or something like that, where there is no give. Okay, that's medium effectiveness. But the most effective thing is going to be if you have like a half inflated basketball, maybe not half inflated, let's go 70% inflated basketball, or like a medicine ball or something like that, where there's just enough give for you to, create the sensation of actually crushing it, to the point where you can't crush it anymore. Okay? Now, that's the first tip. So those are the 3 tiers of effectiveness and your ability to express muscular force. Now, assuming you don't have a great, ideal thing like a water bottle, because they're so hard to come by and so very expensive that who among us doesn't have a water bottle? And okay, let's just say you have to use one of the less effective means of overcoming isometrics. Well, you can still make them very effective. However, my recommendation would be, because you're not able to express your muscular, ability to its full extent, would be to extend the isometrics longer. So let's say when I press against my own hand here, I'm only able to get up to like a 60%, 70% expression of my strength. Well, that's fine. A 70% isometric still has its place. You just have to prolong it a little bit more. So instead of doing, like a 10-second super max contraction isometric when I'm doing it against my own hand, I might do 30, 40, 50 second contraction, okay, where I'm just trying to go as hard as I can the whole time, but knowing that this is not actually as hard as I can go, right? Okay, you can also do more reps with it. That would be another good option, just to make more time under tension, because the load isn't going to, well, maybe not the load, but the expression of strength isn't quite what it could be. So that's tip number 1A, or no, 1B. 1.1. Okay, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Okay, now here's a second tip, and this is an entirely different tip, and that is, very often when people are talking about overcoming isometrics, they talk about it in terms of how much time. And I just did that. I just talked about how much time you spend doing it. But here's the trick. When you're actually working with something that's ideal, like a water bottle or a medicine ball or something like that, then instead of thinking about time, per se, just about time, right? I find it much more helpful to think about in terms of leveling up the amount of force that you're putting out. So let me just give you an example. So here it is. Okay, instead of thinking I'm going to do a 10-second max contraction on this water bottle, this is what goes through my brain. Okay, ease into it, slow contraction at first, right? Now I'm close to 100%. Okay, that feels like 100%. Now, if I feel like that's 100%, what I'm going to do next is try to jump it up to the next level of force. Okay? Now, I feel like that's definitely 100%, so I'm going to try to do it again. That's 100%. That's definitely 100%. And before long, what you'll find is, typically, at least for me, it takes 2 jumps. It takes 2 leaps to next levels of muscular expression before I find like I can't make another leap, really. It doesn't feel like I can express it anymore. And conversely, when I try, I actually start producing less force. Now, if you don't have a sense of this, it's probably just because you haven't done enough isometrics and you don't have the requisite muscular proficiency. And guess what? This is where muscular proficiency comes from, is doing isometrics, is doing overcoming isometrics. They are bar none the best way to develop muscular proficiency, which is your ability to connect with and express individual muscles and muscular chains, to really feel what's going on in the muscle. So by practicing them, over time, you'll develop a sense of like, oh yeah, I can push it harder from here, and oh, I'll try to push it harder, but no, it's definitely not. It's definitely not. My force output is definitely not increasing. And so for me, that's a much more effective way to approach doing them, because if you're just doing it for time, right, you could be like, oh yeah, oh, this feels like 100%. Okay, I'll just hold this for 10 seconds. But isometric, you should never feel like, if you're going for a max contraction, you should never feel like you should just maintain the contraction. There should always be like, no, can I do it more? Can I push it more? Can I push it more? Until either you can't push it anymore or you're going as hard as you dare. That is not to say that there are times when, there are not times when you should be going, when you shouldn't be trying to push it as hard as you can, right? Like we talked about in point 1.1. If you're pushing against something that you, for example, you can't push super hard against, like your own body, you're going to be trying to push as hard as you can, you just won't be. Or if you're trying to do a prolonged overcoming isometric, you can't necessarily do that at max for the whole time. So really the goal would be get up to something like 90%, 80%, even 70%, and hold it for an extended period of time. However, the effects there are going to be a bit more like a yielding isometric that we talked about in the beginning, where you're holding a weight in place, because essentially that's basically the same thing. Holding a weight in place, the reason you can hold it in place is it doesn't require 100% of your strength. And pressing into something with 70% of your strength is also not requiring 100% of your strength by definition. So the two of those are pretty similar, and their effects will be pretty similar. They will both have more of a hypertrophic or muscle enlarging and muscle building effect, whereas a more max contraction overcoming isometric is going to primarily build your strength and the sort of crushing strength that you get from them, as well as muscle proficiency, but that comes from all. Okay, so that's all I got about isometrics for today. I hope that this was at all helpful to somebody out there. So thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again.